stuck that way until you.
All right, I think we're live. Hey, everybody. Thanks for coming out today. This is another edition of Going Live with Seller Labs. I'm Tyler Henderson, and I've got Jeff Cohen with me today.
Hey, what's going on, Ty?
Hey, Jeff. How's it going?
Oh, things are great, man. Things are great.
Yeah, so you probably know both of us from being out and about at the conferences, and we're pretty much the people that you'll see out and about for Seller Labs. You know, Jeff up on stage and me back there working and talking with people. And yeah, so today we've got a really interesting set of questions. We're going a little bit more diverse than normal, which I think is going to be a lot of fun. A lot of cool questions have already been asked, but it's an AMA, which stands for Ask Me Anything, with Jeff. So, you know, he gets the chance to talk to a lot of cool people in the space, a lot of experts. You know, he's an expert himself. So he's going to have drop a lot of knowledge bombs in this one that are kind of going to span the whole spectrum of Amazon. So
we're going to try. We'll try. Yeah. So basically what, Tyler, if people have questions, put them in the comments below.
Right.
You've got some giveaways, right?
Yeah, we've got some giveaways. We're going to be giving away Seller Labs branded tumbler. So if you're continental United States, you'll win one of these. If you're not continental United States, we'll probably send you something different, maybe an Amazon gift card. They're just pretty expensive to ship overseas. But so how you can win that is go ahead and share this to your other Facebook pages, your timeline, whatever you need to do. Hit share, and you'll be entered in a chance to win. And so we'll do. I know the first tier starts at 10 shares, and then we'll give one away there. And then once we kind of go up from there, every 5 or 10 more, we'll give away another one.
Awesome. You're going to drive Caroline crazy, giving a lot of stuff away today.
No, we're going to give a lot away today, but it's because we're going to be giving a lot of great information away too. So that's the idea.
All right, let's get started. What's the first question?
All right. The first question comes from, we had some people submit questions yesterday and today. So the first question comes from Jennifer that says, a coworker just received an Amazon alert on her phone, so a push notification on her iPhone or Android, that you were looking at one product. You might also be interested in this other product. How do I get my products involved in that?
Yeah, so there's 2 different ways you can get your products involved in the recommendations, right? So number 1 is you can participate in a program called AMG, which is the Amazon Media Group. Amazon Media Group is a way for you as a seller to do what's called retargeting. Oh, my mic is low, huh? We'll kind of turn that up a little bit. Hopefully that works. All right. So we're going to, if you do retargeting, it basically takes anything that you're doing and it retargets your ad to other people who are looking for your ad or ads similar to your ad. So the best place to see this is on the Amazon homepage. If you're on the Amazon homepage and you see ads for products, most of those ads are being served by the AMG unit. Now, you need about $7,500 a month of a minimum spend if you want to do AMG. The other way is to create coupons and to do coupon stacking. So if you have multiple products, what you would do is you would create a coupon that says buy one, get another one half off, or get another one 25% off. If people actually buy both of those products in the cart, then Amazon begins to make those recommendations to other sellers because it sees the similarity of doing that. So that's the 2 ways that you would kind of create the recommendation and to get your product listed in that way.
Awesome. Great answer, Jeff. Thanks for that. So now here's another question from Angela, and this one's a little bit more broad. So we're taking a step back. So if I'm a new FBA seller, what are your top 3 recommendations for me? Where should I even begin?
Yeah, so I'll keep this simple and basic. One is there's a ton of information online. So you can get a ton of information online for how to do FBA. You need to kind of figure out, are you doing retail arbitrage, online arbitrage, wholesale, private label? You got to figure out your business. And the third recommendation is just take action. I mean, it sounds really simple, but so many sellers are waiting for everything to be perfect for them to make their foray into Amazon. Just start. If you're not sure, just go do something and try, and you'll see whether you succeed or whether you fail. You'll see if you like it or if you don't like it, and then you'll be able to make decisions from that to move on to the next thing.
Totally. And just to piggyback on that, I would encourage taking action, but then also like making them iterable small steps. So like if you take action, don't necessarily want to make a $10,000 order to China right away.
Right. I mean, my first foray into Amazon was going to a store and doing retail arbitrage. I didn't like it. I know there are people out there that love it, but I didn't. I tried it. It wasn't right for me. I moved on and tried something else. So you got to do things and try them and see if they work for you. Totally.
So here's a question from Robert. He says, does a company who works as a vendor have to designate a point person to handle business between them and Amazon? Or where can I get an example of a copy of a vendor terms or conditions contract for Amazon?
Yeah. First off, Robert, I love the jacket. So thanks for using that in your photo. I think that I'm going to answer this question quite simply. There are people that are significantly smarter in wholesale than I am. That could probably help you with vendor terms and condition contracts. Mm-hmm. So I would tell you to reach out to somebody like an Eddie Levine. Eddie's probably on here and will pipe up here in a minute. Or the guys over at the Wholesale Formula, Dan and Eric. They're probably good resources. Also, I would just like Google it, right? Like try that, like Google vendor term sheet for Amazon sellers. I just don't know enough to give you some exact information on that. But that's also where this community works. So if you guys have a term sheet and can help Robert out, then message Robert in the comments so you two can connect.
Yeah, that's a great point. There, like Jeff's saying, there's a ton of people out there who specialize in it, and there's even more people out there who would be willing to help you out if you just ask. So that's a great way to do it. And so once again, I want to encourage everyone to comment any questions they have, anything involving Amazon. Just go ahead and write that in the comment section. Today's Go Live's all about answering questions that you have. So, if we don't know the answer, I don't think Jeff or I will either one be shy about saying we don't know the answer.
Yeah, I think one of the advantages that I have is that I have a very big network of people in the space. And so a lot of times the questions you ask, I'm going to point you to the right person, not necessarily try to answer everything.
Totally. So let's find another good question here. We've got a ton. I'm just trying to find one that's relatively related to what we're talking about. All right, here's one from Phil. Phil says, how does my product get better positioning on your site? And I'm assuming he means Amazon, of course, not on sellerlabs.com.
Yeah, you don't really want better positioning on Seller Labs because so Amazon works in we've done full-blown webinars on this topic, but I'll give you kind of this in a nutshell. Sales drive position. Okay, so if you can drive more sales to your product, you're going to get better position for the keywords. But that all starts with having a consistent number of a consistent Amazon listing, and so you need to have proper title, bullets, description. You need to have good photography. All of that is critical to get started, and then you got to drive sales. I mean, the Amazon makes money by selling products, and so they take the products that sell and they put the best selling products first. That's why if you if you run a keyword search for a particular keyword and you look at scope data, it's most likely ranked by BSR. Now you'll see a couple of things that maybe are anomalies within that, but for most keywords, it's going to be ranked based on BSR, and BSR is the bestseller ranking, and that's clearly determined by the number of sales that you drive as well as some other factors.
Awesome. Great answer, Jeff. So just before we move on to this next question, I do want to remind everyone that we're giving away some tumblers today. We're giving away one for every 10 shares we have. So enter in your chance to win that Seller Labs Suite Tumbler. Just hit the share button. Make sure everyone knows about this. So talking about BSR and, in scope and all of that, Christina asks, how often should we be testing new search terms? How often should we be changing the keywords in our listings and more broadly?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think the answer to that is pretty simple. Always be testing, ABT.
Yeah.
It's not something you need to like be thinking about and staying up late at night worried about, but it's something that you should be building into your calendar on a regular basis to be looking at. And you always want to be looking at your listing, your competitors' listings, your keywords, your competitors' keywords, and having a very good understanding of exactly what it is that is driving sales for your product and your competitor's product, and what are other terms that are being used. And so there's two different ways to kind of figure out new keywords that you should be looking at to possibly add to your listing. First is going to be looking at your competitor's listing and doing what's called a reverse ASIN lookup. You can use a tool like Scope to do that. The other is to use your sponsored ads search term report. And that's going to show you not just the keywords for your product, but actually the search terms. And so for the people that aren't aware, when you run sponsored ads, you give them a keyword, and that keyword equates to a search term. The search term is how the user actually searches for the product. And that's what you're looking to be adding to your listing, is the actual search terms people are using.
Right, because I think something that you and I both share in that regards is when talking to people about this is you want to optimize for conversion first, right? So when people leave you reviews or when you can see the search terms that people are actually using, use those, right? That's how people are actually searching for it. Optimize for the way that people are actually looking for your product.
Yeah, I mean, the classic example is that, you've got a baking dish, but it's also called a casserole pan.
Right.
And so, if you have a product and you're not sure exactly what people in the industry call it, that's where you use your competitors to look that up.
Yeah, exactly. So let's go. 1 second. I had a great. So Jeff, you were talking about the search terms report, all of that. So when looking up even on Scope or other places, sometimes it gives me some funky keywords, or in the search term reports, I get ASINs. How do I best use those when optimizing?
Yeah, so let me tell you a great little nugget here. If you run auto-targeted ads, okay, so the only time you're going to see ASINs in your search term report is if you run auto-targeted ads. And if you run an auto-targeted ad, what happens is that Amazon tries to find relative products to your product, and then on the product detail page, you will show up. So if you go to your competitors or your product detail page and you scroll about halfway down, you'll see sponsored ads on the bottom or going across. That's a great indication of Amazon creating a one-to-one relationship between your product and somebody else's product. So what I do is I take that ASIN, I go into Amazon and I search for it. I pull up the Scope tool and I look at a reverse ASIN of that product. So I look to see what keywords my competitor is ranking for. I then take that data and I will use it to update either my keywords or my my title or possibly my advertising campaigns. And so Amazon has created a relationship between your product and that product. And so you should look at that to figure out why that relationship occurs, and then how you can best use that to improve your listing.
Awesome. So I see a lot of questions about a lot of different topics, but I want to continue down this kind of line for just a second more, because we have some questions about, once you're doing keyword optimization, what's the best way then to launch my product, in 2017? Obviously, super URLs, review groups, things like that are now all out. So what's the best way to launch my product today?
Yeah, so there was recently a study by Northwestern University. I think somebody in the group can probably post to it. If not, I can post to it later. And that study indicated that a product needs 5 reviews. That's the number they kind of came up with. Right. And so your first 5 reviews are your most critical, which means you've got to generate some initial sales, use a tool like Feedback Genius, build a good process to connect with your customers and your brand and get your initial reviews. Incremental reviews after 5 don't tend to affect conversion. Okay, so that doesn't mean they're not useful. It just means they don't connect to conversion, meaning that there's no difference between 5 or 10 or 5 and 25.
Right.
The other thing that you need to do in launching your product is you need to find ways to drive traffic to your product outside of Amazon. And so gone are the days that you can just list a product on Amazon and boom, it takes off. Right. Those are the good old days. They're no longer here. What you need to be looking at now is who is your product, who's the target market, and how can you drive sales to that product? And so if you use like the example that we like to use, the apple slicer, you might want to target cooking groups on Facebook or something like that. Reach out to the admin of that group. Try to set up a contest where you're giving something away in exchange for an email. Use your product. If your product is inexpensive, use your product as a subset of the larger product. I don't know if the link is still live, so somebody can check it before we post it, but we had a link to a Facebook Live that we did. I think it was sellerlabs.com/traffic. And we talked with actually two experts in the space. One is Brett Bartlett and the other is Scott Volker. They both have very unique processes for driving initial traffic and sales to your listing. And if that link is still live, we'll link to it and share that video with you, because that's a great kind of in-depth way to learn more about how to launch a product and using contests.
Right. And just to that extent, those are both great guys that are out there, but there's tons of people out there that are willing to share their advice on how to do it. Of course, like we said, we would advise steering clear of anything that recommends any of the what are now black hat tactics, of course.
Yeah. I mean, you can't do super URLs. You can't do product giveaways in exchange for reviews. So it looks like that URL is not working, but we can fix that URL and get it reposted.
Yeah, we'll get the team to do that and post it up.
Yeah.
So we had a great question.
Looks like Corey posted the actual YouTube video, but
awesome.
We'll get that up, and that's a great video to watch. It's going to give you a lot of good nuggets on how to actually make that work, because both of them use different processes, but we actually went through each of the processes and kind of compared and contrast them so you can figure out which one works for your business.
Totally. That's a great video. I really enjoyed that one myself. Okay, so we talked about how using Feedback Genius to get reviews is a great way to do that. So we have a couple questions here about Feedback Genius. So Tim asks, this is a really simple one. How many any ideal setups for my emails to my customers?
Yeah, so Tim Davis, are you the same Tim Davis that'll be speaking at Retail Global? I know there's a Tim Davis who's speaking at Retail Global on eBay. Not sure if it's the same one or not, but if it is, hey, and if it's not, nice to meet you. Let's see, ideal scripts for Feedback Genius. So we give you templates. When you log into the site, there's a template for you to use. What you need to do is actually take that template and customize it to yourself. And so I ask you to ask two questions, okay? Just keep it really simple. Look at your subject line. Think to yourself, if this was in my inbox, would I open it? If you wouldn't open the email, guess what? Fix your subject line. Then read your email and think to yourself, would I write this person a review? Are they connecting with me in any way, shape, or form? If your answer is no, then you've got more work to do. Okay. So I know that oversimplifies it, but those are the two things you have to ask yourself, because I don't know about you, but I get hundreds of emails in my inbox every day. And for you to catch my attention, you've got to connect with me. So I just bought some electronic equipment from Anchor. I'm familiar with the brand. I connect with the brand. They do a good job of marketing as the brand. And so if they connect with me in an email that tells me how to use the electronic equipment that I just bought, I'm going to be more apt to pick that up, open it, read it, and then want to give them something back because I've connected with the brand. So if you're not doing anything to connect with your consumer, they're not going to do anything they're not going to have any desire to want to do something for you. So that's really what it comes down to. Now, I'll give you two pieces of advice in addition to those two tips. One is I think we have an ebook on writing messages. And I think it's like 7 tips to optimizing Feedback Genius. So we can connect to that. The other is that we started working with a lady. Her name is Karen, and she runs a group called Marketing Words. And she actually walks you through step by step the process of building and connecting listings and such. And so if you're looking for more of like I don't want to call it a course, because I don't think what she sells is a course. It's more of a system and a service. She might be somebody you want to reach out to.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff. Yeah. I mean, of course, like, just like you're saying, providing value is like the key there, and making sure it's compelling content. So we've got another question from, I think it's Monet. And by the way, that was not the same Tim. He commented in and said,
oh yeah.
Not.
Well, it's nice to meet you, Tim. Thanks for asking a question.
As many people have observed, since the buyer opt-out for the buyer-seller messaging system has occurred, it's become more difficult to get reviews to some regards. Any advice? Is there another way to get around this, or do we not want to do that, or what's the deal?
Yeah, so the first thing that I'm going to tell you, let's address this for people that don't know what we're talking about. Amazon made a change in March that allowed buyers to opt out of seller messages. Amazon is a 20-year-old company that didn't allow opting out of third-party messages. Mm-hmm. So what Amazon essentially did was gave buyers the ability to stop getting messages when they don't want to get them. And a lot of sellers kind of threw up their arms and said, well, it's not fair. But think about if you were doing business with a company and you didn't have an ability to opt out of their messages if you didn't want their messages. That's all Amazon did. So we see about 30 to 40% of the emails bouncing, meaning that 60 to 70% of the emails are still going through. Right. So a good number are still going through. It just means that you have to be that much more connected to your customer to make sure that your customer wants to do and help you by writing a review. In addition, if you're getting these bounce emails, there is a way within Feedback Genius to automate them so that you can essentially remove them from the system so that future emails don't get sent. And I saw a question about, do you get charged? You're not necessarily getting charged for the emails, but you don't want all of the extra emails going. Now, if you have a very important message to send to your customer, there is a way to still do it, but you have to do it directly through the buyer-seller messaging system on Amazon. And you have to use a bracket with the word important at the beginning of it. Now, I caution you that if you choose to use this, that you're putting yourself at risk. So you better understand exactly what you can and cannot message to your customer, because if you violate Amazon's terms of service, they will suspend your account.
Right, exactly. And to that end, I think that, and from my point of view, this opt-out is a good thing largely, right? Because most of the time, the people who are opting out would probably have never responded to your email positively anyway. Right. So that's kind of the stance that I take, is like, I'm happy. Like, the more people, if they're never going to respond positively to me emailing them, then good. I don't need to like waste my time or potential negative review or feedback on it.
Yeah. So let me just repeat that, because I saw Dave's message come up about how do you stop the bounce backs.
Yeah.
There is a way to automate in your email to auto forward those messages to Feedback Genius, where we auto blacklist them and essentially automate it. So Corey will post a link in the blog comment, or in the comments here, with kind of the step-by-step instructions of how to do it.
Jeff, and talk about the global blacklist for a second.
Yeah, so Seller Labs also has what's called a global blacklist. It's by default turned on for all of our account users. If you don't want it, you can turn it off. But what that does is, if somebody opts out of one of my messages, we don't send your message either. And so that's how the global blacklist works. And by default, it's turned on. You can turn it off if you want to ignore it. We don't necessarily recommend that you ignore the global blacklist. It's kind of these people don't want to get messages from other people, so why do you want them coming from you? And then we also, never send those messages to the customer.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for
Thanks,
that.
Corey.
Yeah, great. Yeah, and Corey's posting all that in there.
Yeah, Corey's killing it. Thanks, Corey. I saw Caroline's posting a bunch too, so appreciate you guys having my back. That's my marketing team. They're trying to make me look good today. Thanks.
And so while we're at it, talking about the marketing team and giving away stuff, like I said, we're giving away tumblers today. Or if you're international, you're probably not going to get a tumbler just because it's more expensive. But if you want a sweet Seller Labs Yeti-like tumbler, then we'll send that to you. All you have to do is hit share, and we'll give one away for every 10 shares that we have. So go ahead and hit that. I can attest. This is my personal one that I've been drinking out of. It keeps your drinks hot and or cold for a while.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool stuff we got there. So let's see here. There's a lot of great conversations going on in the comments today. I like that a lot, guys. Like I said, keep posting those questions that you have, and we will keep answering them.
Hey, can we address a question that I saw come up in before we started with regards to the 250 characters?
Yes, let's definitely get into that. 250 characters in the back-end search term. So recently there's been an update, just to give everyone some context. Recently, Amazon's, to some level of controversy, may or may not have made an update where they're only indexing 250 characters from the 5 fields of search terms in your product, in the back end of your product. Jeff, what's your opinion on this?
We can post to the blog article, and you guys can read my comments on it. But here's what I want you guys to think of. First, when this blog article was posted, the comments are in there of how many people are land blasting me, telling me how I'm wrong and all these type of things. That's, I think, what's more important to address than anything else. So Amazon is making changes. Okay. Most of the posts that people are sharing from Amazon have actually come from international editions of the Amazon Seller Central, not the US. But Amazon is rolling these changes out across their whole platform. Some sellers are seeing a dramatic change and they're needing to redo their listings. Other sellers are seeing no change whatsoever. And so it's not about, for me, it's never about me being right or wrong. Like, that's just not what I want. I don't care about being right or wrong. I just want to inform you guys as to what's going on. And so that's what's critical to me. So like when people are like, hey, you're wrong because I have 300 characters. Bravo, man. I'm so happy for you that you have 300 characters. What you as a seller need to do is figure out whether your listings are being affected. If your listings are being affected, you need to understand what you can do to fix it. And so it's not about whether it's 250 characters, 50 characters per line, 5 lines, 250 characters in 1 line. It's about what you need to do to optimize your listing to have the best chance to succeed on Amazon. And so how that works is you have your title, you have your bullets, you have your description. Those are all the main areas where you should fill your information in to tell Amazon and your buyer what your product is and what it does. Your back-end keywords are for relative keywords to your product that help further describe it that was not used on the front end of your listing. And so if you really have spent all of your energy on the front of your listing describing your product and you still have more things you need to say, that's what the back end is intended to be used for. Now, how we've gone to use it or how we've gone to abuse it is that we stuff a bunch of keywords into the back end that aren't really relative to our product. And so you could stick a keyword in your back end and get your product to rank or to index for that particular keyword. And Amazon is just basically saying it's not necessary. And so we're reducing the value of that. And you as a seller need to figure that out. Now, there was a webinar we did a couple weeks ago, I think 2 weeks ago, with Chad Rubin from Scubana, and he offered a great golden nugget for what to do about this debate, argument, whatever you want to call it. And what his golden nugget was to look at your session by child ASIN report. When you look at your session by child ASIN report, look at that today versus a month ago versus 3 months ago versus 6 months ago. That's going to start to give you a pattern and a benchmark of how many sessions you're getting. Sessions are views of your product detail page. If that number is sharply declining, there's something wrong. You're not getting as much traffic to your listing. If that number is increasing, then there's good stuff happening. And so you as a seller shouldn't read a blog article and go delete a whole bunch of text. You shouldn't listen to a webinar and go change the process of how you do everything. You should take the information in that I give and that other people give. You should digest it and figure out what you want to do with your business. What I like to say is that we as sellers have what's called FUD, F-U-D, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And whenever we hear of new information in the space, FUD just corrupts our mind because we don't know what to believe, what not to believe. We feel like we need to go make immediate changes the next day. But what you really need to do is digest. And that's why we share information, is so that you as a seller can digest the information, determine how it affects you, and implement it for your business in that way.
Awesome. Yeah, I totally agree.
I was about to pull out the mic and do a mic drop on that.
Yeah, no, that's a mic drop worthy moment. I mean, I totally agree. It's so easy to get caught up in the space of Reddit posts and Facebook posts and blog posts, and to get distracted by all the static in any industry, to grow stagnant or not act because of those things. So I totally agree that everyone just needs to take the information and then apply it as best they can. So we talked briefly about optimizing your listing and then your back end and all of that. So Nina has a question that's kind of a long question, but the question, essentially it is if I'm going to come on as a wholesale person to a listing, but it already exists, would it be better to take over the current listing basically, or wait and get an exclusive one and start with a new child ASIN?
Awesome. Great question. Before I answer Nina's question, I'm just curious, you guys out there, are you enjoying this? Because I need to see hearts flying across the screen to know whether you guys are enjoying this or not. So if you're enjoying this, give a thumbs up, give some hearts. I want to kind of see that you guys are enjoying this, because, if you're not, we can just stop. So, all right, let's jump into Nina's question. Can you put it back up so I can see it?
Let me find it. So it came down to I'm wanting to work with a manufacturer. Their listings suck. Can I just take those over? Should I ask for exclusives so I can build them from the ground up? What's the best way to handle that?
Yeah. So okay. Let's see.
Deep question. A lot of parts to that.
It's not, but I want to make sure I answer it correctly. One, you can only create a child listing if you have a reason to create a child listing. So this is not eBay, where you can create all of your own listings for your products. What you need to do is, if there is a reason to, let's say the manufacturer has the black version and you have the ability to buy the white, then you can create a child listing. But what you want to do is you want to do the same thing as a wholesaler that you would do if you were a brand owner. And so I was actually meeting with a big wholesaler the other day, and he was telling me that redoing of listings was a big way for them to show value back to their wholesalers, right? So here, golden nugget, man. If you can provide value to your wholesaler and you can drive more sales to the wholesaler, you benefit. And so there's no reason to create another listing unless you have some type of exclusivity or something like that. But what you want to do is actually build that listing up. Now, only do that if you have replenishment on the product or you have some kind of limited exclusivity. If you're one of 45 sellers, it might not be worth your effort to to put that much energy into a listing. But I definitely would use a tool like Scope. I would build better listings for any product that I want to sell, because all that's going to do is increase my conversion.
Right. The caveat I would add to that, Jeff, is another instance is where you win the buy box a large percentage of the time.
Yeah.
That would be another instance. So slight change of subject, but David asks, how can I track how many product reviews I'm getting through Feedback Genius?
Yeah, that's actually a really easy answer. Inside Feedback Genius, there's a tab called Products. On the tab called Products, you can set, I think, your short names, and you can identify which products you want to track for product reviews. I believe you get a couple of product tracking for free, and you can add more on for a relatively inexpensive price. So that's right within Feedback Genius. You just have to turn that tracking on under the product tab, right? Am I right?
Yes. Yeah, you just put them in there. And that'll also, I believe it's the same place where you put in that you want to give the product a short name.
Yeah.
Like a cleaner.
And one other thing, because David, you asked like a very simple question, and I hope you haven't had that question for a long period of time. But like, if you're on any of the Seller Lab sites, in the bottom right corner, like over here, the right corner, there's a little like bubble. And if you open up that bubble, you actually can communicate directly with any of our customer service reps. Now, they might not respond to you immediately, but you can say, yeah, I'm looking to track my products for product reviews. And then they're going to come back and they're going to and they're going to answer that, and they're going to either email you that answer or it's going to go live back to you. So we added that feature in. And thanks, Ricardo. We think the tech team's great too. They added that feature in, and it's a great feature for you guys to kind of directly connect. And then they can also see like what page you're on or what you're trying to do. And so they can help kind of direct you into the right place. So no question is a silly question. No question is too small. And if you're on any of our sites and you're trying to do something like that, like that's a great way to just kind of interact with us and to get a quick question answered, from our team.
Totally. So Wessel asks, you mentioned that 5+ reviews on a listing is what we need to influence conversion. What about account reviews? So I think he's talking about seller feedback here. How many seller feedback do I need to be competitive? What's the deal with that?
Yeah, so okay, so for people that don't understand the difference, seller feedback is me ranking a seller. Product review is me ranking the product. Seller feedback is important if you're trying to win the buy box, and product reviews are important if you're trying to convert sales. Seller feedback is based on recency and relevancy. So the number is kind of an arbitrary number. It's hard for me to tell how many you need. I think you said you have 2,000 and your competitors have 10,000. I'd have to look at how recent your competitors have their reviews. And so what's really become important for seller feedback is that you're constantly getting it. And so Amazon kind of looked at this. This was probably about 2 years ago. Amazon looked at this and said, it doesn't make sense for it to be a pure number, because I could have gotten 1,000 when my product launched and I've gotten nothing ever since then. Amazon wants, it's a sign of the fact that you're doing well. And so Amazon wants to see that kind of as a flywheel. They want to see it keep going. And so they want to see it constantly coming in. So I wouldn't necessarily look at an absolute number, because typically that number is a rolling 365. I would look at that as am I constantly getting that feedback in? And is that feedback that I'm constantly getting in positive?
All right. Yeah, I think that's a great answer to that question. So we have a question here from David. And so we're switching over to Ignite, which we've actually haven't talked about PPC much at all, which is a little surprising because I figure people always have a lot of questions about that. But David asks, how long does it take Ignite to create suggestions? Are they different from keyword suggested when you start your Ignite campaign?
Yeah, Dave, that's a great question. So we've jumped over to sponsored ads.
Right.
There are actually two different type of keyword suggestions. Okay, so David, what you're at there, the initial suggestion you get when you create the campaign is keywords associated to your ASIN that you may want to run a phrase or an exact match campaign on. Mm-hmm. That's a keyword suggestion. It's using reverse ASIN, technology database that we have inside Seller Labs. In terms of the other suggestions, the suggestion module has actually been updated. An update went live, I think, in the last 2 or 3 weeks, giving you access to all of your suggestions inside of Ignite, not just a couple at a time. It can take anywhere from 24 plus hours to get those suggestions. If you're not seeing suggestions, I'm going to give you 2 tips. One, take your confidence and move your confidence down. Okay, so confidence is like, how confident are we in the decision that we're recommending to you? The second one is look at the importance and move that down. Mm-hmm. If you're still not getting anything, reach out to our customer service. Tell us, hey, I'm trying Ignite and I'm not seeing any suggestions for my campaigns. Most likely you have something set up wrong inside your campaigns. And so therefore the data that's coming in doesn't allow us to make recommendations for you. And so the biggest kind of complaint we get from Ignite is that Ignite doesn't work. And most of the time when we dig into the complaint that Ignite doesn't work, most of the time when we see Ignite doesn't work, it's typically that the campaign setup was wrong. So they didn't use the right types of keywords to get the search terms that they needed. And that's why we make our team available to do onboarding calls and to look at your Ignite campaigns so that we can help you make the adjustments necessary to be successful. So that's the 2 recommendations. So I saw Dave asked, if you're not seeing recommendations, there's a slider for both confidence and importance. So slide it down, meaning that you want to see things that we have less confidence with. The other thing is to look at scheduling a meeting with our Ignite team so that we can see if there's something wrong with your overall campaign that we can make a recommendation for.
That's a great tips there. So continuing down the sponsored products, the sponsored ads line, Bold Cube asks, recently started using headline ads. Headline ads have become, for people who are unaware, headline ads have become available to third-party sellers as well as first-party sellers now. So I saw a big boost in day 1, but then it dropped off. How can I maximize this?
Yeah, so headline search ads are now available in Seller Central. We did a Facebook Live on that a couple of weeks ago. So we could probably post to that video as well if you want to learn more about headline search ads and how they work. Bald Cube, you're asking kind of a very specific question to your campaign that's hard for us to analyze. Headline search does not give you a lot of report data. Mm-hmm. And so it makes it a little bit harder to kind of figure out what's going on. It could be, the first thing to think about is that headline search, it sits at the top of the search results page. There's only one spot. And so depending on how competitive that spot has gotten, you may have just lost that spot. So if you look at a consumer and you look at how a consumer moves from awareness to acquisition, headline search is at the highest level of advertising. Headline search is typically where you're trying to do brand building. Headline search isn't going to drive a lot of direct sales as much as sponsored products ads are going to. But typically the sales that it does are a little bit cheaper because it's of where it sits and how it promotes. So I would look at a couple of things. I would look at one, what does your storefront look like? So on headline search, when you click on the button, you can go to a whole page with all the products that you're listing. I would test images and I would also test different copy. And so that's something that's different with headline search than sponsored product ads. With sponsored product ads, you don't have to worry about photos. You don't have to worry about copy or anything like that. But you do have to worry about that with headline search ads. So that's something for you to consider. And again, Mr. Cube, you are welcome to reach out to us, and we can take a quick look at your campaign and see if we have recommendations.
Totally. And Brandon and I did a go live last week where we covered that extensively and just exactly what you were just talking about. So if we can get
so Corey, if you can find the link for that for last week's go live, let's throw that up there for people to see.
Yeah, we had a blog post roundup to accompany that as well. So if you could get the link to that, that'd be perfect. And so we're rounding out to the last 10 or 15 minutes. So I really quickly wanted to do one last thing here where I say share the video, get your chance to win the Seller Labs mug. If you have questions that you want answered, if you say, well, I'm gonna leave here and not learn anything today, we'll ask a question that we can make it so you learned something here today, right? We want this to be beneficial for you guys. So we're gonna keep on trucking here. So if you like it, give us a thumbs up, give us a heart, share us for the chance to win your nice little mug here. But let's get on back to the questions now. So continuing down the PPC line, I'm not going to even attempt to say your name, so I'm sorry for that. But for PPC, what do you do when the keyword you're bidding on is also your product, but if your expensive high ACoS is competitive? So what if the keyword for your product is just too competitive and you don't want to bid on it?
So Mr. Wong, what I would say is use negative keywords. Mm-hmm. So I would use negative keywords to filter out what is not your product, right? So if garlic press is the product and the keyword, then is yours plastic or is yours stainless steel? Is yours gray or is yours red? So I would use negative keywords to kind of remove what we call wasted ad spend, mm-hmm. to kind of zone in on exactly the search terms that people are using to find your product. That's probably the easiest way to describe it.
Yeah, so for the example that we always give about apple slicers, right? You would never want to bid on just Apple, right? Because then you're bidding on Apple computer in a broad match, right?
Right. So in that example, you wouldn't bid on the term garlic, or you wouldn't bid on the term press, right?
Right.
And if garlic press is what your product is and it's expensive, then that's what it takes to win the ad. Amazon's algorithm is built, from what we can tell, to return a positive, what's called return on investment, right? It's not in Amazon's best interest for you to spend ad dollars and never drive any sales.
Right.
And so a lot of times when you're trying to drive all of those sales through PPC and bidding up and up and up and up and up, Amazon's going to give you a chance, but you might not actually succeed from that. And then once the relevancy isn't there, then Amazon is going to take you back down. So I'm going to answer this question real quick. I see a question here from my buddy Jim.
Okay.
All 25 characters in one field or 50 in 5 fields? It doesn't matter.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
So we have a question. What are the suggestions and what are the best ways to use them in Ignite, of course? Sorry. Put it back in.
So inside Ignite uses a machine learning algorithm to make suggestions of what to do for your campaign. If you haven't logged into Ignite in a while, it has an automated feature now that you can actually set to automatically accept the suggestions that we make. So you don't have to come in and click on the buttons to suggest them. If you feel the confidence is there, then we'll go ahead and make the changes for you. And so our machine learning algorithm is basically taking all the data and knowledge that we have, and it's using it to predict what you need to do to get the optimal ACOS that you need for your campaign, right? So ACOS is the advertising cost of sale. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to get you the most amount of exposure for the best return on investment for your dollar. And that's what our suggestions are doing, is honing in your campaign for you to get there. Now, if you've never run sponsored ads or you haven't been successful with sponsored ads, what I recommend is that you take a step back and you think about sponsored ads as an investment. So the first 2 or 3 weeks that you run sponsored ads, you're not going to actually get the ACOS that you're looking for. It takes some time to collect the data and to use that data to make the suggestions and recommendations that are needed. Now, if you've been running campaigns for a while, then we can use the past 60 days of your data to start making recommendations right away.
Right, and that kind of goes back to the question earlier about if you're not seeing suggestions. So just like you were saying, we can only provide suggestions on things we have enough data for. And so you can be more aggressive and have a more aggressive spin, and we can give you more suggestions more quickly, or you can be less aggressive and we'll be able to give you, with less spin, and we'll be able to give you the same suggestions just over longer periods of time. Correct? Yeah.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay, so we've got switching gears a little bit back to Feedback Genius, or requesting feedback and reviews. Should I ask for seller feedback when I ask for product reviews, or is that a faux pas?
Personally, I think my recommendation is to focus on a single ask within a message. It's a basic rule of marketing that you want to focus your consumer to do one thing and provide them a reason for doing that one thing. They don't know the difference between seller feedback and product reviews. So I would focus on the one that's the most important to you.
Totally. And there's a ton of great information out there just about email marketing in general. And you'll have to kind of take it through the lens of what's available or what you can do through Amazon, what you can't do through Amazon. But there's, an infinite amount of information out there about the best practices for email marketing. But yeah, I would second Jeff's opinion on a single ask. You only want to ask for one in an email. So here's a question from Enrique. He asks, he says, first of all, thanks for attending, Enrique. What are the dangers of listing a private label product outside of the brand registry? In your experience, is there danger? Should we only list private label products if we can get brand registry in 2017? I think that's a great question.
Yeah. So, I don't know the answer to that. I think the answer to that's going to kind of come over time. Right now, brand registry 2.0, for people that are not aware, we can post to an article we did on it to give you more information, requires a trademark. So you have to have a USPS United States Postal Trademark, something like that. USPTO, that's what it is. US Patent Trademark Office. You have to have a USPTO trademark. There's only 2 classifications of trademarks that work for brand registry. And once you have that, you get brand registry. Now, today, brand registry allows you to control storefronts, and headline search ads. So if you have the old brand registry, you can still get headline search ads, but you can't get storefronts. From what I understand from Amazon, this is my own take on some information that's been shared with me. From what I understand from Amazon is that there are going to be more and more features put behind the brand registry gate. And so I wouldn't say that you cannot do private label without brand registry, but I would say that if you have brand registry, you will have access to more tools for doing private label.
I would agree with that. Yeah, totally. And so if you have a profitable private label product, it's also probably worth taking the steps towards getting brand registry.
Yeah, and I think that brings up a good point, Tyler, right? Like, if I'm bringing a new product to market today, I might not start with a trademark on day one.
Right.
But if that product gets on Amazon and starts doing well, then I want to go through the process of doing a trademark. And it does take some time to get a trademark. It's not something you can just apply and get within 24 hours.
Yeah, it's a 6-month to a year process.
Yeah. So you do want to, once you find a product that has some momentum, you do want to take the time to go through that.
Yeah, and so it's exactly what we were talking about earlier, where you don't want to let all these little things stop you from moving forward, right? So don't let the fear of not having brand registry stop you from getting your product live, right? Just take steps and learn along the way.
Exactly.
So we have just a nice little comment from Alexis here. He says, I appreciate the negative keyword examples. You saved me some money today. I'm glad to hear it. So glad it was worth your time.
That's what I like to hear.
Yeah, definitely. That's a really – so there's some really in-depth questions here. And so Nick in particular, a couple other guys and gals in here. Some of those questions are a little too in-depth, but we'll try our best or have someone from the marketing team come back through and answer these more in-depth questions. Or like Jeff said, reach out to support at Seller Labs.
Yeah, and I can also I'll go through the comments afterwards, and some of the questions we didn't get to, I'll try to post answers to as well. I mean, there's only so much we can get to in the time.
Yeah, there's some really in-depth ones here. So Nina asks, what if the product has a manufacturer trademark?
Yeah, then you cannot have brand registry. Okay, so if you are not the owner of the trademark, you cannot have brand registry. Now, there is a way, and I'm not 100% positive how to do this, but there is a way for the manufacturer to register for brand registry and then to designate you as the I don't know what the term is, but as the person, as the designator, we'll use that term. Mm-hmm. So I'll have to reach out to my buddy Peter Kearns. We can post him in a comment here and see if he knows the answer to that. But there is a way to do it. I just am not 100% positive exactly what that way is.
Yeah, that's a tricky one for sure, and I think that's one of those things that, like you said earlier, some of these things are just we're gonna have to wait and see.
Yeah, it's still pretty early.
Yeah, especially with brand registry 2.0. It's very, very tentative still. So we have a question about the support. Someone asks, if it displays that they'll be back tomorrow, does that mean I won't be answered till tomorrow?
I think you're just picking up. I think you're just picking up someone was trying to connect with support and they got an out of office. You know what? We'll check into that. It might be that they are at lunch or the whole team is busy in a meeting right now, so they put an out of office and it defaulted to show tomorrow that they'll be back tomorrow. So we'll look into that.
Yeah, I mean, and one thing I will say about our support team is I think we have one of the best in class support teams. All U.S. based, get you responses in under 24 hours generally. Just great team as far as that goes. So Jeff, did you have any other things that you wanted to touch on really quick? We're coming up close to the end of the hour.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think you guys asked some really awesome questions. I thank you guys for the questions that you've asked. If you're out and about, I will be out and about. So,
where are you going to be next?
So let's see. In 2 weeks, I'll be at a conference in New Jersey called the LTB Summit. I think it's ltbsummit.com. It's called Let's Talk Business. It's more of a business, but it's got an Amazon track to it.
Okay.
The week after that is the awesome Retail Global Conference.
Yeah, that'll be great.
At that conference, I will be doing a Amazon Masterclass workshop along with some of my friends over at Marketplace Ignition.
Yeah.
We have a coupon. I think it's Seller Labs 100. We'll save you $100 off of Retail Global. The week after Retail Global, I think Tyler and some members of the team will be at Jim Cochran's CES conference.
Yeah, I'll be at Retail Global
that
as
conference is in Orlando, Florida.
Yeah.
And then I think the next conference after that is Ecom Chicago in October. So that's kind of wrapping up the conference season for 2017. We have started planning our conference, right? So Seller Labs does a conference called Resonate. We have started planning that, and we're looking to release the dates in the next 4 to 6 weeks. So keep an eye out. That conference is typically targeting more experienced Amazon sellers. It's a more intimate environment. We cap it at around 120 to 130 people at the conference, and it's typically in Atlanta, Georgia. So you can you keep an eye on our newsletter that comes out once a week. And I'm sure you'll see something on that.
Definitely. Well, Jeff, thanks for answering all these questions. I know it was a little bit sporadic as far as all over the place.
That's the whole point of an AMA, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think this was pretty productive. So if you guys enjoyed this, want to see more content like this, comment that you like this. Maybe we can get Brandon or some of the product managers on for something like this in the future as well. So if you like it, show us some love, comment, like it, give us a heart, and we'll see if we can get more content like this going on in the future. And
thanks, everybody.
Thanks for coming out today, and we'll see you all next week.